Rugby is a sport which is not for the faint-hearted, and the stars of the sport need to be able to hold their own and mix it up physically with anyone on their day. But even amongst the roughest and toughest of them all, there are a few individuals which give the rest of the rugby world sleepless nights. Whether it's their aggressive running, brutal tackle technique, or a page taken out of a UFC match, these players stand alone, head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to having that intimidation factor. So join us as we take a look at the scariest players in rugby history. But before we do that, we ask that you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave your comments down below on whether we've named all the players that popped into your mind when you saw this title. And now, without further ado, let's get back to the video. Starting off with a player who is the stuff of nightmares for opposition. It's the imposing enforcer from South Africa, Eben Etzebeth. Etzebeth burst onto the scene in 2012, laying waste to fellow hardman Bismarck du Plessis in a super rugby showdown between the Stormers and the Sharks. That was enough to put down a marker to show that, despite his age at the time, he was not one to be messed with. Etzebeth comes from a family of notorious fighters and wrestlers, and this certainly shows in the way he plays the game. Never far from being in the thick of things, Etzebeth is quite easily the scariest player currently playing rugby today. Possessing superhuman strength and the eyes of a predator, just ask Australian prop Alan Alalatoa if you don't believe us. Etzebeth stands at 2.03 meters tall and weighs in at 117 kilograms. It would be safe to assume that this would mean he is a slow cart horse that struggles to get around the park, but you'd be wrong. For a big man, Eben moves like a train and hits like a truck. He has left many players wincing in pain and will continue to do so until he hangs up his giant boots. The next player on our list is the man that Etzebeth took over the Springbok enforcer role from. The original enforcer himself, Bakkies Botha. Bakkies, as he is affectionately known, was a modern-day behemoth and treated the rugby field like a giant battleground. Bakkies knew his role very well and performed it in expert fashion, and that role was to inflict pain on the opposition. The goal was to win the physical battle up front in order to allow his team to win the war as a whole. To do that, Bakkies needed to get the opposition to take a step back. He sometimes used unconventional methods to achieve that goal, such as splitting Matt Stevens in two and headbutting Jimmy Cowan from behind, but he achieved the goal nonetheless. Solid in the tackle and always ready to get stuck in, no list would be complete without Bakkies being on it. One man who faced Bakkies on many occasions but certainly never took a step back was the late great hard hitter Jerry Collins. Jerry was a ferocious tackler and the perfect partner to a young Richie McCaw. Whilst McCaw was stealing balls at the breakdown and scoring tries, Jerry was folding opposition like deck chairs. The Samoan-born All Black weighed in at just 112 kilograms and used every bit of his weight when he flew into tackles. All opposition players would see was a flash of Jerry's trademark peroxide hair before being met with a bone-crunching hit, a legend of a player that the rugby world will never forget. From one All Black to another, next on our list is Jerry's former teammate, the first global superstar of rugby, the late great Jonah Lomu. Whilst the other players on this list so far have been enforcers and hard hitters, Jonah was scary in a different sense. No one has ever struck fear into the opposition like Jonah Lomu did, and it's very possible that no one ever will. Lomu stood at 1.96 meters tall and weighed in at 120 kilograms as a 19-year-old. Oh, and did we mention he could run the 100 meters in a time of 10.7 seconds? Jonah was built like a forward, but plied his trade out on the wing and terrorized the opposition in doing so. What made Jonah so scary for opposing teams is that they had absolutely no idea how to stop him. If the ball got to Lomu, it was almost a certainty that a try was going to be scored. Whether it was him running over half the team and around the other half to dot down himself, or drawing in 10 players to stop him at once only to offload to a teammate, it's safe to say he was any coach's worst nightmare to game plan against. There have been many big wingers since, but there is only one Jonah. Next on our list is a fellow Pacific Islander and a member of one of, if not rugby's most famous family. Now it goes without saying that any of his brothers could have made this list, and that should be a testament to just how scary he is to stand out amongst them. Who are we speaking about? It's none other than the terrifying Henry Tuilagi. You have to be a frightening prospect if fellow hardmen such as Schalkberger, Deli Rosso, and Juan Smith have trouble tackling you. Henry has been described by many as the toughest and widest player player they've ever come up against. He steamrolled opposition with ball in hand and flattened them on defense. Although he was only just over 6 feet tall, Tuilagi weighed in at a whopping 138 kilograms. The tackles he put in are the stuff of legend, and he used his brute force for good measure. Aggressive and powerful, Henry Tuilagi had a very strong claim to being the scariest rugby player to ever play the game. Today's players can let out a sigh of relief that he has hung up his boots. Henry wasn't the only Samoan horrifying opposition though. In fact, he had a teammate who had the exact same effect, only he was in the back line. A man who was nicknamed the Chiropractor. Next on our list is Brian Lima. Lima's nickname was not just given, it was well earned. Able to display scintillating running rugby and skills to match, Lima was more well known for his fearsome tackling. At times it appeared that opponents were being cut in half when they were met by one of Brian Lima's shoulders. Not the biggest man on the field compared to some of the others on this list, but what he lacked in size, he made up for in ferocity. Next on our list is a man who certainly didn't lack in size and looked like someone from a Viking film. It is the caveman himself, Sebastien Chabal. There are few more recognizable faces than the long-haired, bearded Frenchman, and few better sights than seeing him smash opponents on the rugby field. Chabal was a savage and produced pure violence between the four white lines. Not only did he look barbaric, but he played in barbaric fashion too. Chabal was a core member of the French side of the 2000s and often was seen as being the heartbeat of the team. He was a fundamental part of providing the platform for the French flair to take place by winning the collision. A man who feared no one and was feared by many, Chabal famously stared down the hacker at the 2007 World Cup and proceeded to put his body on the line for his country. A dominant tackler and a hard runner of the ball, there were few scarier than the caveman. Next on our list are a pair with the same surname who both had an utter disregard for the well-being of their bodies. There must be something in the last name, Burger. Different players with a similar playing style, Jacques and Skulk both laid waste to opposition time and time again. Jacques Burger, the Namibian who became the heart and soul of the Saracens side for many years, was a tenacious tackler and a notorious hard hitter in the Premiership. Few have been tougher than the man from Windhoek. Skulk, on the other hand, was perhaps more of an all-round rugby player, but when it came to being scary on the field, little can separate them. Skulk flew into tackles in a way that made you question his sanity. A skillful hard man with no concern for his own safety, the 2004 World Player of the Year was a great competitor and a scary opponent for anyone taking on the box between 2003 and 2015. There have been many scary rugby players over the years, and if we were to include every single one of them, this video would have to be a multi-episode documentary. Unfortunately, we only have space for the few we have mentioned. However, it would be only right that we give an honourable mention to a few other scary individuals who quite easily could have made their way on this list. The three we've picked out for honourable mentions are former England World Cup winning captain Martin Johnson, the stocky Samoan Trevor Leota, and the great Georgian flanker Mamuka Gorgodze. They say rugby is a game for all shapes and sizes, and with that being said, there is definitely a place for the scary players as well, and it seems there always will be. What remains to be seen in the years to come is if there will be any new players who can stake their claim to be on this list. Now is the time for you to have your say, and we encourage you to do so. Are there any players that you would regard as the scariest rugby player of all time that we've missed out on? Whether you agree or disagree with our list, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel so that we can continue to bring you great rugby content. Until next time, thanks for watching.